Hey everyone, I'm Brenton and welcome to Brenton's Question of the Week. Questions that collectors think about but don't always ask. So last week's question, is it important to have hobbies outside of collecting? And here are some of the responses from the community. Luke said, 100% agree with you. My other hobby is cars, but that can be exhausting at times, so it's nice to sit back with a drink in front of statues, play some games, and do something completely different. I'd get bored pretty quick if I was just waiting months for each statue, so good to always have something different to do. Mojo Potato said, I believe it's definitely important to have other hobbies outside of collecting. I love watching sports, particularly football. So whenever football season arrives, it helps me not to get too obsessed with collecting. Although if my team stinks that year, which is quite often, I get over it by purchasing new statues. It's a vicious cycle. Well, Mojo, the Eagles will always accept some new fans. Chris Letty said, I'm on board with this notion. Over the past 8+ months, I've gotten back into cars. This was a major passion of mine in the past, but kids and a career change sidelined it. Now that those feelings have been rejuvenated, I'm working on finding a balance between cars and collecting. This is important because both passions can become very expensive. I need to be realistic with how I spend my money in each area. If this means I need to be more selective with collecting, so be it. Maybe a less more slash quality over quantity approach is how I make collecting work going forward. If I'm going to also be making cars part of my life again. Thanks, Brenton, for the great question to ponder. So thank you all for the great responses. And this week I've been thinking about, do you prefer a collectible that is quickly assembled or takes some time? So, there's stuff that you can buy, whether it's action figures, some statues that everything is already together and a figure at least you can interact with and pose. But if you're buying a statue that is already together, you just open it out of the box, set it on the shelf, and you're done. Do you prefer something like that? Or do you prefer something that takes some time? And, I'm thinking of things like Lego, where you have to go through a process and it may take hours to build something, possibly days if you only do a little bit at a time. Or there are some more complicated statues. I know a lot of Prime 1 Bay Transformer statues. They have tons of pieces and it may take a while to put that together. And, the question is, which one of those do you prefer? And you know what? I feel like I'm middle of the road. There's sideshow. I like sideshow statues, and they're not always that complicated. It's usually putting a body on the base and then adding a portrait. A lot of the times that's what it is. Or you throw a cape on there, or maybe there's an arm switch out. Not even very likely. But then I also love building Legos, and I've gotten obsessed with building some Lego projects, like the collector's version of the Batman '89 Batmobile. That thing took me 15 or 16 hours to build that, and I loved doing it, and I loved every moment, and it was a very rewarding process. It wasn't just setting it on the shelf and kind of forgetting it. You can look and admire it, but it's not always the same. So thank you everyone for watching. Please feel free to answer in the comments and come back next week to hear what other collectors had to say and for another hard-hitting question.